Welcome to the Authority File, the podcast that features conversations about the life cycle of scholarly communication. I'm Bill Mickey, your host and the editorial director at Choice. In this special 2-episode series, we've linked up with our friends at ACRL to profile one of the latest titles from its monographic publishing group, Text and Data Mining Literacy for Librarians, edited by Whitney Kramer, Iliana Burgos, and Evan Muzzall. Whitney and Iliana, both at Cornell University, are research and data librarian and emerging data practices librarian, respectively, while Evan consults for the electrical grid construction industry and was a leader in various data science, anthropology, and humanities teaching and consulting settings for a decade at San Francisco State University, UC Berkeley, and Stanford University. Once at home in the humanities, text and data mining, TDM for short, has quickly gained popularity among researchers across many other disciplines. Library support for the practice has grown just as quickly, and librarians are finding they need to develop their skills in this area. This title aims to be a standalone resource for TDM newbies and experts alike who need to understand how libraries can implement TDM literacy, services, and workflows at their institutions. If, after listening to this series, you're interested in acquiring the title, you can visit the ALA store at alastore.ala.org and use the promo code ACRL20C, which is good for 20% off through December 1st, 2025. In this first episode, we're joined by Whitney and Iliana and learn about the background of the book and get an introduction to what text and data mining is all about. Okay, Whitney and Iliana, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. So why don't we just start with brief introductions? Can you each just explain a little bit what you do at Cornell? And Iliana, why don't we start with you?
Sure. My name is Iliana Burgos, and I'm the Emerging Data Practices Librarian. And so at Cornell University Library, and I specialize in text as data issues. So I primarily work with folks that are working in digital and computational humanities, but also I get to work with folks across disciplines on campus. And so, yeah, I'm just very involved in helping facilitate community building efforts related to digital literacy and data literacy.
Excellent. Thank you. And Whitney?
So my name is Whitney Kramer. I am the ILR Research and Data Librarian, and I primarily support the Industrial and Labor Relations School, commonly known as ILR, as well as the Economics and Statistics and Data Science super departments. Those both encompass researchers from multiple schools and departments across campus. So I work with researchers at all levels, undergraduates, graduates, and faculty who have a wide variety of experience in working with all types of data, textual and otherwise.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about the book real quick. So the book's introduction, makes the case that text and data mining is becoming pretty central to how research happens across disciplines. As you note in the intro, it's sort of having its origin in the humanities. It's expanded way beyond that now, and librarians are right in the middle of all this. Why did you feel like this was the right time to bring all these perspectives together in one volume? And how do you see text and data mining literacy fitting into some of the bigger trends we're seeing in scholarly communications on campus?
Yeah, the short version is that we were really surprised to find out that nobody was discussing this. The original idea for the book came from our work on an ID Plus digital scholarship group task force. We had been tasked with investigating the availability of educational materials about TDM for librarians who wanted or needed to learn more. Often librarians wind up having to rapidly upskill on different technologies or research methods because that's what their patrons are interested in using. And TDM is really no different. There's so much out there to support the researchers themselves who want to utilize TDM. But there was really nothing for librarians, and supporting researchers doing their own work is an entirely different skill set than doing that research yourself. And we were just really surprised when we did this literature review to find out that this book didn't exist. The thesis of the white paper we produced from that task force was essentially these materials didn't exist, but were very clearly needed. And it made us realize that this was the perfect time for someone to put this book together. And the overwhelming number of proposals we received in response to the CFP showed us that others felt the same way we did.
Wow, excellent. Iliana, anything you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to Whitney's point, these conversations began within an Ivy Plus task force, which again is a really particular sort of group of individuals representing particular private institutions and so forth. So we really felt committed to expanding the conversation to a wider group of academic library workers, and especially folks from different sort of points in their career, different types of specializations. So we really just wanted to help build a more expansive conversation. And of course, as the late, great Toni Morrison put it, if there's a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. And so again, in our case as editors, it felt a little bit more natural to bring more voices into the room rather than just relying on our own.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because it sounds like there had been, or there is some literature out there on this, but it either was very specialized to specific campus types, institution types, or specific experiences with this, or there seemed to be a gap in that literature in terms of like really making literacy part of the equation here. Was that a correct assumption there?
Yeah, that was totally it. And so certainly in our introduction and kind of reflecting on all of the different materials that help to inform the work of that task force, but also the broader goal of this book is, to really honor all of those different initiatives. Some of them were grant funded, some of them were more institution specific. There were certainly certain conversations happening, but as practitioners coming into the space, Whitney and I were also like very much early career professionals when we started this book editing journey. So a lot of it was also just kind of piecing together things that have helped us in our workflows and journeys, and helping essentially give that as a gift to the next people that are tasked with being the specialists in their institution and may not have any kind of wayfinding support.
Right. Excellent. I should ask, you note in the introduction as well that TDM can be defined in several ways. I'm wondering if you can kind of, before we get too into this, just kind of talk about how you're defining it for your book.
So text and data mining, I mean, essentially, I know we quote, we have a particular quote that we refer to as a working definition in the book, but really it's about all of the processes of gathering, collecting, and analyzing text data, and all the workflows embedded in that. So not just the sort of analysis portion, but also thinking about how data is stewarded through that process. So, but again, everyone's going to have different definitions. That's a very loose one that we kind of, and also we were really clear about that from the introduction as well, that some of our authors will have their own versions as well.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So one of the things I like about part one of the book is really how practical it is, from adapting the reference interview for TDM to creating micro credentials for librarians who might not have a data science background. What are some of the approaches you feel that work for librarians to build confidence and skills in this space, especially if they're starting from scratch?
Yeah, definitely. So first and foremost, the one thing I would say is do not feel the pressure to become an overnight expert on anything. It's hard to do as a library worker because people are coming to you and asking for support, and you're trying to process it given your information, the information you have.
And they need that information like now or yesterday, basically. Yeah.
Right. There's like an urgency there. And then it's like really easy to just kind of get into one's head about like, oh, I can't adequately address that totally valid question. Like, though, that's something I think that's really common. So if you're completely new to text data mining, I think one of the important things you can admit to both yourself and researchers in the process is that, I may not know completely the workflow just yet, what that will look like just yet, but let's figure it out together. So really emphasizing that relationship as one of co-learning, and that way it can be a little bit more mutually empowering for both the library worker and the researcher. So again, it can be hard given certain dynamics, different expectations from patrons, but at the very least, having that kind of mindset for yourself that you are approaching it with a learner's perspective as well as a specialist. Yeah, and that library workers have a ton of different awesome skills to come into a new, like, this is also, I think, a really common, it doesn't have to be like text or data mining being the topic, any sort of emerging technology or anything that might be initially intimidating for someone at a reference desk or as an instructor or so forth. Relying on the skills that you already have. One of the chapters that I've seen our colleagues gravitate to immediately in that first section is chapter 2, which is the reference interview recommendations for text and data mining by Laura Egan. It's a really great example because many library workers are going to be familiar with the sort of reference interview format. And so immediately it's an entry point for people to say, oh, text and data mining, I really don't even know what that is, but I do know what the reference interview is. And so using that as a way to kind of start breaking down what a patron's question is and ways that they can kind of address it. So those are some initial thoughts. I'll pause there and let Whitney share too.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll also add that this is really one of the reasons when we were, soliciting chapters for this book that we wanted to have a range of writers at different stages in their careers. Librarians who were all across the spectrum in terms of early career or people who had been doing this work for a while, because we thought it was important to have this range of voices represented because it would show librarians who are building this confidence in real time versus librarians who had been doing this work for longer. And I think it was important to see how librarians at different stage of their career can approach working with newer technologies.
Excellent point. Can I ask, just out of curiosity, how you made that happen in terms of your call for chapters? Were you just lucky enough to get a range of people in different parts of their career, or did you specifically ask?
We specifically asked. There was
Okay.
a line somewhere in the call for proposals that said we encourage early career folks or people who have not written book chapters or articles before to apply.
Okay. Awesome. You just heard from Whitney Kramer and Iliana Burgos, co-editors along with Evan Muzzall of the title Text and Data Mining Literacy for Librarians, available now from ACRL. Join us next week when we talk about specific use cases for text and data mining, including partnerships across disciplines, licensing and legal issues, and how library services in this area will continue to evolve. Remember, if you want to purchase the book, visit the ALA store at alastore.ala.org. Use the promo code ACRL20C, good for 20% off through December 1st, 2025. The Authority File podcast is brought to you every week by Choice and produced by digital media producer Sabrina Kofer. That's all for this week. Thanks for joining us.